Admiral Kang Ho sat in his command chair on the bridge of the Eternal Dominion. The massive warship was the pride of the Galactic Empire. Its crew of 3,000 soldiers and officers kept watch over the Outer Rim systems. Today was supposed to be another quiet patrol day. The alarm changed everything. "Sir, we have a problem," called out Lieutenant Du Haiyan from the sensor station. His voice shook as he spoke. "There's something coming from the restricted zone." Kang Ho turned his chair toward the young officer. The restricted zone was the Kepler 442 system. Earth was there. The humans lived there. They were not supposed to leave their planet. The Empire had made sure of that 300 years ago. What kind of something? Kang Ho asked. Du Haiyan looked at his screens again. His face went pale. "It's a ship, sir." "But the readings don't make sense." Captain Yoongi walked over to look at the sensor data. She was the ship's science officer and knew more about alien technology than anyone else on board. Her eyes went wide as she read the numbers. "This can't be right," she said quietly. "The energy output is impossible. No ship this size should generate this much power." Commander Taemin stepped forward. He was in charge of ship security and intelligence. His job was to know about threats to the Empire. Right now he looked very worried. "Are you sure it's from Earth?" he asked. "The trajectory confirms it," Du Haiyan replied. "It came from the Sol system, from Earth itself." The bridge went quiet. Everyone knew about humans. They were a primitive species that barely knew how to make fire when the Empire first found them. The official report said they were still using chemical rockets too. Reached their own moon, they posed no threat to anyone. "Could it be one of our ships?" Taemin suggested. "Maybe a research vessel?" Yunji shook her head. "No Imperial ship has those energy readings. This is something completely different." The main screen showed a long-range view of space. A small dot moved slowly toward them. It looked harmless enough, but the sensor readings told a different story. "How fast is it moving?" Kang Ho asked. "0.7 light speed," Du Haiyan answered. "But sir, that's the strange part. It's not using any drive system we can identify. There's no plasma trail, no quantum distortion, no hyperspace signature. It's just ... moving." Kang Ho had been an admiral for 20 years. He had fought pirates, rebels, and alien invaders. He had never seen anything like this. Ships needed engines to move through space. They needed fuel and complex systems to reach high speeds. This human ship seemed to ignore all the rules. "Try to contact them," he ordered. Communications Officer Sumin worked at her station. She sent out standard greeting messages in 40 different languages. She used all the common frequencies. She tried emergency channels. Nothing came back. "No response, sir," she reported. "They're either not receiving us or they're ignoring us." "Keep trying," Kang Ho said. He turned to Taemin. "Get me everything we have on human technology. I want to know what we're dealing with." Taemin nodded and left the bridge. Kang Ho watched the dot on the screen grow slightly larger. The human ship was still far away, but it was getting closer. He had a bad feeling about this. Yunji continued studying the sensor data. "Admiral, I'm seeing something else strange. The ship's hull composition is showing materials we don't recognize. The atomic structure doesn't match anything in our databases." "Could it be some kind of new alloy?" Kang Ho asked. "I don't think so," Yoongi replied. "These readings suggest the hull is made of elements that shouldn't exist. Elements with atomic numbers beyond what's possible in normal matter." The science officer's words made everyone on the bridge uncomfortable. If humans had discovered new elements, new materials, then their technology might be far more advanced than anyone thought. Taemin returned with a datapad. His face was grim. "Sir, I've reviewed all our intelligence on human capabilities. According to our files, they achieved fusion power 50 years ago. They have basic space stations around their planet. Their fastest ships can barely reach 10% of light speed. But this ship is moving at 70% of light speed," Du Haiyan pointed out. "Exactly," Taemin said. "Either our intelligence is completely wrong or this isn't a human ship." At all, Kanho considered both possibilities. The Empire's intelligence was usually very good. They had spy satellites watching Earth for centuries. They monitored human communications and technology development. How could they have missed something this big? Sir, the ship is changing course, Duhayan announced. It's heading directly. For us now, the Admiral felt his heart rate increase. A ship with unknown capabilities was moving toward his vessel. His crew was trained and experienced, but they had never faced anything like this. Raise shields, he ordered. Charge all weapons, but don't lock on yet. I don't want to start a fight we might not be able to finish. The bridge crew followed their orders quickly. The Eternal Dominion was a powerful warship with enough firepower to destroy a planet. Its shields could stop almost any weapon, but Kanho wasn't sure that would be enough. Still no response to our communications? He asked Su Min. Nothing, sir. Wait. She pressed her earpiece closer. I'm getting something now, the main speakers crackled to life. A calm, clear voice filled the bridge. The speaker used perfect Imperial Standard language with no accent. Imperial Vessel Eternal Dominion, this is Captain Minho of the UES Defiance. We are not hostile, we are returning home. The bridge went completely silent. Everyone stared at the speakers. A human had just spoken to them in their own language. A human who claimed to be commanding a ship that shouldn't exist. Kang-ho found his voice first. Captain Minho, this is Admiral Kang-ho of the Galactic Empire. Your vessel is in restricted space. You must return to Earth immediately. The response came quickly. Admiral, with respect, we've been away from home for a very long time. We're not stopping for anyone, Yunji grabbed Kang-ho's arm. She whispered urgently, Sir, the ship is accelerating. It's now moving at 0.85 light speed. No ship should be able to accelerate that quickly without turning its crew into paste. Kang-ho looked at the main screen. The dot was definitely bigger now. The human ship was approaching fast, and there was nothing normal about it. Captain Minho, he said into the communication system, I need you to slow down and prepare to be boarded. We need to inspect your vessel. The human captain's laugh echoed through the bridge. It wasn't a mean laugh, but it wasn't friendly either. It was the laugh of someone who found something very amusing. Admiral, I don't think your inspection teams would survive the experience. We've changed quite a bit since we left home. Perhaps it would be better if we just passed through your territory peacefully. That's not possible, Kang-ho replied firmly. No unauthorized vessels are allowed to leave the Kepler 442 system. Those are the Emperor's direct orders. There was a long pause. When Captain Minho spoke again, his voice was different, colder. Admiral, those orders were made by people who didn't understand what they were dealing with. We're going home now. Don't try to stop us. The transmission ended. The bridge fell silent again. Kang-ho stared at the growing dot on his screen and wondered what kind of mistake the Empire had made 300 years ago when they decided to leave the humans alone. On their little planet, he was about to find out. Chief Engineer Hai-Jin ran through the corridors of the Eternal Dominion. Her boots echoed loudly on the metal floors as she hurried to the main engineering deck. The Admiral had called for emergency diagnostics on all sensor equipment. Something was wrong with their readings, and she needed to find out what. When she reached the engineering bay, her team was already working frantically. Screens showed numbers that made no sense. Energy readings that broke every law of physics she knew. Report, she called out to Engineer Dongwu, her second in command. Ma'am, we've run the diagnostics 3 times, he said, wiping sweat from his forehead. All our sensors are working perfectly. The readings are accurate. Hai-Jin looked at the main display. The human ship was still approaching, and the numbers were getting worse. The energy output showed a ship that should be impossible to build. Show me the power readings again, she ordered. Dongwu pulled up the data. The ship is generating approximately 50,000 terawatts of power. That's more energy than our entire fleet produces combined. And we can't detect any power source. What? Do you mean no power source? Hai-Jin asked. There's no fusion reactor signature, no antimatter containment field, no quantum generator readings. The power is just ... dar. Meanwhile, on the science deck, Dr. Ji Woo was having his own crisis. He had spent his entire life studying physics. He understood how the universe worked. The human ship was proving him wrong about everything. His assistant, Dr. Hana, pointed at another impossible reading. "Professor, look at this gravitational data. The ship isn't just moving through space, it's bending space around itself." Wu studied the numbers carefully. According to his instruments, the human ship was creating a localized gravity well that moved with it. This allowed it to slide through space without actually accelerating in the traditional sense. "This is impossible," he muttered. "You need the mass of a star to bend space like this. That ship is maybe 2 kilometers long. Could they have somehow compressed matter?" Hannah suggested. "Created a small black hole inside their ship? If they had, we'd detect massive gravitational distortions," Zhiwu replied. "Instead, their gravity field is perfectly controlled. They're manipulating space-time like it's clay." Back on the bridge, Intelligence Officer Bin was digging through classified files. The Admiral wanted answers about human capabilities, and she was finding disturbing information. "Sir," she called out to Commander Taemin, "I've found something you need to see." Taemin walked over to her station. Subin showed him a series of incident reports dating back over 2 centuries. "These are records of contact attempts with Earth," she explained. "Every 20 to 30 years, the Empire sends a research mission to monitor human development." "I know that," Taemin said. "Standard procedure for primitive species." "Sir, look at the mission results." Taemin read through the files. His expression grew darker with each report. Mission after mission showed the same result: no return contact. Ships would approach Earth and simply disappear. "How many missions?" he asked quietly. 17, sir. Over the past 230 years. None of them ever reported back. What was the official explanation? Subin hesitated. Equipment failure. Space anomalies. Pirates. Different. Reasons each time. Tae-Min understood the real truth. 17 missions had discovered something about humans that the Empire didn't want to know. Something so dangerous that every crew had to be silenced. On the main bridge, Captain So-young received new orders from Admiral Kong-ho. She commanded a squadron of patrol ships that had been following the human vessel. "Captain, I want you to perform a scanning run." Kong-ho's voice came through the communications. "Get as close as you can and give us detailed readings." "Understood, Admiral," So-young replied. She turned to her pilot. "Take us in, maximum scan range." Her ship, the Swift Justice, accelerated toward the human vessel. As they got closer, So-young could see it clearly on her main screen for the first time. The ship looked wrong. Not broken or damaged, but wrong in a fundamental way. Its hull seemed to shift and flow like liquid metal. Parts of it appeared to be transparent, showing internal systems that hurt to look at directly. "Captain," her sensor officer called out nervously, "I'm detecting massive structural inconsistencies. Parts of that ship exist in our dimension and parts don't. What does that mean?" So-young asked. "I'm not sure, ma'am. It's like the ship is partially phased into another reality." As the Swift Justice moved closer, something unexpected happened. The human ship suddenly changed direction without turning. One moment it was moving in a straight line, the next it had shifted 90 degrees to port. No ship could change direction like that without destroying itself and its crew. "Did you see that?" So-young asked her crew. "Yes, ma'am," the pilot replied, with a shaky voice. "They just moved, no acceleration, no turning, they just moved." So-young ordered her weapons officer to prepare for combat. If the human ship could move like that, it might be preparing to attack. But when she tried to lock her targeting systems onto the vessel, nothing happened. "I can't get a lock," the weapons officer reported. "The target is there, but our computers can't track it properly." "Try manual targeting," So-young ordered. "Ma'am, I am." The ship keeps shifting between dimensions. Half the time it's not even there. Dr. Ji Woo received the new sensor data from the Swift Justice and nearly fell out of his chair. The human ship wasn't just bending space around itself. It was moving through multiple dimensions simultaneously. "This is impossible," he said to his assistant. "Matter can't exist in more than one dimension at the same time. Unless," Hannah said slowly, "they've learned to control dimensional barriers the same way they control gravity." The implications hit Jiwoo like a physical blow. If humans could move between dimensions, they could appear anywhere instantly. They could attack from directions that didn't exist. They could hide in spaces that no one else could reach. Back in engineering, Hyjin was discovering something even more disturbing. The human ship's energy signature was changing as she watched. "Dong-woo, look at this," she called out. "The power output is increasing. How much?" he asked. 20% in the last 10 minutes. "But that's not the strange part. The ship is getting more efficient. It's learning how to use energy better." "Learning?" Dong-woo repeated. "Ships don't learn. This one does. Its power systems are adapting and improving in real time. It's like the ship is alive." Commander Taemin brought his disturbing intelligence reports to Admiral Kang-ho. The two men stood in the Admiral's private office, away from the crew. 17. "Missions, Admiral," Taemin said quietly. "All lost, and every official report blamed equipment failure or pirates." Someone didn't want the truth getting out, Kang-ho realized. The question is, what truth? What did those missions discover that was so dangerous? Admiral Kang-ho looked out his office window at the stars. Somewhere out there, a human ship was approaching with technology that shouldn't exist. Technology that broke every rule they knew about physics. "Maybe they discovered that humans aren't primitive," he said finally. "Maybe they never were. Then why let us think they were?" Taemin asked. "Maybe because they wanted us to leave them alone. Maybe because they were preparing for something and they needed time." The two officers stood in silence, contemplating the implications. If humans had been hiding their true capabilities for centuries, what else were they hiding? What were they preparing for? On the bridge, Communications Officer Sumin received another transmission from the human ship. This time, Captain Minho sounded different, more serious. "Admiral Kang-ho, this is your final warning. We have no intention of harming you or your crew. But we will not be stopped. Order your ships to move aside." Kang-ho returned to the bridge and took his command chair. He looked at the tactical display showing the human ship surrounded by his patrol vessels. On paper, he had overwhelming firepower. In reality, he was beginning to suspect he was completely outmatched. "Captain Minho," he said into the communications system, "I have my orders. I cannot allow unauthorized vessels to leave the restricted zone." "Then you've made your choice, Admiral." "I'm sorry it came to this." The transmission ended. On the main screen, the human ship began to glow with an inner light. Energy readings spiked beyond anything their instruments could measure. And slowly, impossibly, more ships began to appear around it. Ships that had been hidden in spaces that didn't exist until now. Admiral Kang-ho stared at the main screen in horror. Where there had been one impossible human ship, now there were dozens. They appeared out of nothing, materializing from empty space as if they had always been there. "How many ships are we looking at?" he asked Lieutenant Du-Hyen. Du-Hyen's hand shook as he worked his controls. "I count 47 vessels, sir. But the number keeps changing. Some of them fade in and out of our sensors." "Fade in and out?" "Yes, sir, like they're moving between dimensions. Sometimes they're there, sometimes they're not." Captain Yoon-ji was running scans as fast as her equipment would allow. Each new reading made less sense than the last. "Admiral, these ships are all different. Different sizes, different designs, different energy signatures, but they're all using the same impossible technology." On his private communications channel, Kang-ho called for reinforcements. He needed more ships, more firepower, more everything. But deep down, he was beginning to suspect that numbers wouldn't matter against an enemy like this. In the Imperial Intelligence Archives, researcher Na Yoon was following orders from Commander Taemin. She had to find every piece of information about human contact missions. What she discovered made her blood run cold. The files went back much further than anyone had admitted. The first contact with humans had happened over 400 years ago, not 300. And the early reports told a very different story. Humans demonstrated advanced mathematical concepts, read one ancient report. They showed understanding of dimensional physics that we had not seen before. Recommend. Immediate further study? Another report was even more disturbing. Human subjects disappeared from secure containment. No evidence of outside assistance. Security systems showed no breach. Subjects appeared to simply walk through solid walls. Yun found report after report describing impossible human abilities. Humans who could survive in vacuum without protection. Humans who could move objects with their minds. Humans who seemed to know things they shouldn't be able to know. And then, about 300 years ago, the reports suddenly changed. Humans were described as primitive, barely capable of basic technology. The earlier reports were sealed and classified at the highest levels. Someone had made a decision to hide the truth about humanity. Dr. Jiwoo was having a breakdown in his laboratory. Everything he had believed about physics was wrong. The human ships were doing things that should be impossible, and they were doing them easily. Professor, his assistant Hannah said gently, perhaps we should consider that our understanding of physics is incomplete. Incomplete? Jiwoo laughed bitterly. It's not incomplete, it's completely wrong. These humans are manipulating fundamental forces like children playing with toys. He pulled up the latest sensor readings. Look at this, they're not just bending space around their ships. They're creating new space. They're making the universe bigger just so they have room to move. How is that possible? Hannah asked. I don't know. According to everything we know about reality, it isn't possible, but they're doing it anyway. On the bridge of the Swift Justice, Captain So Young was trying to understand what she was seeing. The human ships moved in formation, but not in any formation she recognized. They moved in 3 dimensions, but also in directions that didn't exist. Captain, her pilot said nervously, I don't think we should stay here. We have our orders, So Young replied, but her voice lacked confidence. Ma'am, look at the tactical display. The human ships aren't just surrounding us. They're surrounding us in dimensions we can't even see. We're not just outnumbered, we're trapped in a space that's bigger on the inside than the outside. So Young looked at her instruments and realized her pilot was right. According to her sensors, space itself had been twisted around them. The human ships had created a pocket of reality where normal rules didn't apply, back on the Eternal Dominion. Chief Engineer Haijin was discovering something that terrified her. The human ships weren't just using advanced technology. They were improving their technology in real time. The energy efficiency is increasing every minute, she told Admiral Kang Ho over the communications system. Whatever power source they're using, it's getting better at its job. Getting better how? Kang Ho asked. I don't know, sir. It's like their ships are learning. Like they're alive and getting smarter. Engineer Dong Wu confirmed her readings. Ma'am, it's not just the power systems. The whole composition is changing too. The materials are becoming denser, stronger, more resilient. The ships are evolving. Intelligence Officer Subin made a connection that chilled her to the bone. She pulled up files on human biology and compared them to the ship readings. Commander, she called to Taemin. I think I know what we're dealing with. What? He asked. The ships aren't just advanced technology. They're extensions of the humans themselves. The humans have somehow merged with their technology. The ships are part of them. Taemin stared at her in disbelief. That's impossible. Is it, sir? We've seen humans do impossible things for centuries. We've just been covering it up. Maybe this is what humans really are. Maybe they're not just using advanced technology. Maybe they are advanced technology. Commander Taemin brought this disturbing theory to Admiral Kang Ho. The two men met again in the Admiral's private office. But this time they weren't alone. Dr. Jiwoo was there, along with Chief Engineer Haijin and Captain Unji. Let me understand this correctly, Kang Ho said slowly. You're suggesting that humans have somehow evolved beyond normal biology? That they've become something that exists partially in our reality and partially in others? It would explain everything we're seeing, Jiwoo admitted reluctantly. The impossible physics, the dimensional shifting, the evolving technology. If humans exist across multiple dimensions simultaneously, they could manipulate reality in ways we can't understand. But how? Yunji asked. How does a species evolve that quickly? Hyjin had been thinking about this question. Maybe they didn't evolve naturally. Maybe they chose to evolution. Maybe they discovered how to guide their own development. Directed evolution, Tumen said quietly. They turned themselves into something beyond normal life. The implications hit everyone in the room at the same time. If humans could control their own evolution, what else could they control? What were the limits of their abilities? On the main bridge, Communications Officer Sumin received another transmission from Captain Minho. This time, his image appeared on the screen. He looked human, but something was different about him. His eyes seemed to see too much, and his smile was too knowing. Admiral Kongho, Minho said calmly, I believe you've been learning about us. About what we really are. What are you? Kongho asked directly. We're what humanity chose to become. We're what any species can become if they're brave enough to take the next step. The next step toward what? Toward transcendence. Toward becoming something more than biology and chemistry. Toward becoming masters of reality instead of slaves to it. Kanho felt fear growing in his chest. What do you want from us? Nothing. Admiral, we're just going home. But we want you to understand something important. The Empire has been watching us for centuries, studying us, trying to control us. You've seen us as a threat because you don't understand what we are. And what are you? We're the future, Admiral. We're what every intelligent species can become if they choose growth over safety, evolution over stagnation, possibility over limitation. The transmission shifted, showing views of the other human ships. Each one was different, unique, beautiful in ways that hurt to look at directly. They were works of art and science combined, creations that existed in multiple realities at once. We didn't choose to be your enemies, Captain Minho continued. We chose to be something better than we were. But your empire saw that as a threat. You quarantined us, watched us, sent missions to study us like lab animals. We were protecting the galaxy, Kanho protested. From what? From the possibility of growth? From the chance to become something more than you are? The human captain's image leaned forward, and his eyes seemed to look directly into Kongho's. Soul, Admiral, your empire is dying. You've become so focused on maintaining control that you've forgotten how to grow. You've become so afraid of change that you've stopped evolving. And you're offering us a choice? We're offering you a chance to see what's possible. But first, we need to go home. We've been away for a very long time, and there are others waiting. For us, the transmission ended, leaving the bridge in silence. Admiral Kongho stared at the screen where Captain Minho's image had been and wondered what kind of others might be waiting on Earth. He was beginning to suspect that humanity's evolution was far from over. Emperor Yujin received Admiral Kongho's emergency report while sitting in his throne room on the capital world of Centaurus Prime. The massive chamber had been built to intimidate visitors, with its size and grandeur. Today, for the first time in decades, the Emperor felt small. Impossible, he said after reading the report twice. Humans are primitive. Our intelligence confirms this. General Sung Ho stood beside the throne, his face grim. He commanded the Empire's most elite military forces and had never lost a battle. Your Majesty, perhaps our intelligence has been wrong. For 300 years, Yujin snapped. Are you suggesting our entire intelligence network has been incompetent for 3 centuries? I'm suggesting, Your Majesty, that we may have been seeing what someone wanted us to see. The Emperor considered this possibility. If humans had been hiding their true capabilities, they had done so with incredible skill. The Empire's spies used the most advanced surveillance technology available. How could primitives fool such sophisticated systems? Bring me Admiral Sujin, Yujin ordered, and prepare the 7th Fleet for immediate deployment. Admiral Sujin commanded the Empire's most powerful military force. The Seventh Fleet included 12 dreadnoughts, 40 battle cruisers, and over 200 support vessels. It had enough firepower to destroy entire solar systems. Within hours, the Admiral stood before her Emperor. She was a stern woman who had served the Empire faithfully for 30 years. She had never questioned an order, never failed a mission. Admiral, Yujun said, I need you to resolve this human situation quickly and quietly. Use whatever force is necessary. What are my rules of engagement, Your Majesty? There are no rules. These humans have somehow developed technology that threatens the stability of the Empire. They must be stopped before other species get similar ideas. Sujin nodded. I understand, Your Majesty. What about survivors? There will be no survivors. I want the human homeworld sterilized. I want their ships destroyed. I want every trace of their technology erased from existence. And if they surrender, they won't be given the chance. Meanwhile, the human fleet continued its journey toward Earth. Captain Minho stood on the bridge of the Defiance, but standing wasn't quite accurate. His body seemed to exist in multiple places at once, shifting between different versions of himself. His crew moved around him with easy familiarity. Like their captain, they had been changed by their long journey. Engineer Kiwu existed partially. As energy, his consciousness spread throughout the ship's systems. Navigator Unesio saw through dimensions, her eyes perceiving routes through spaces that didn't technically exist. Captain, Kiwu's voice came from the ship's speakers, I'm detecting massive Imperial fleet movements. They're bringing serious firepower. How serious? Minho asked. The Seventh Fleet, 12 dreadnoughts plus support vessels. Enough ships to glass a continent. Navigator Unesio looked up from her dimensional charts. They're planning to hit U.S. in the Kepler 438 system. It's a choke point. Good tactical thinking. For normal ships, Minho replied with a slight smile. Kiwu, how are our siblings doing? The other fleets are in position. The Harmony reached Earth yesterday. The Evolution is holding at Luna. The Transcendence is waiting in the outer system. Minho nodded. Humanity had sent out many exploration fleets over the past 50 years. Each one had returned changed, evolved, carrying new knowledge and capabilities. They were all coming home now, and our friends? He asked. The volunteers are ready. Humans who chose full transcendence. They're excited to see what happens next. Back with the Imperial fleet, Admiral Kangho received word that the Seventh Fleet was approaching. He felt relief mixed with concern. He was glad to have reinforcements, but he worried about what would happen when Admiral Sujin arrived, Commander. Taemin brought him more disturbing intelligence. Admiral, I've been analyzing the human fleet movements. They're not running. What do you mean? They could escape easily. Their dimensional shifting ability means they can leave whenever they want. But they're not leaving, they're gathering. Gathering. For what? I think they're waiting for something or someone. Dr. Ji Wu had been studying the energy readings from the human ships and made a discovery that terrified him. Admiral, the human ships aren't just powerful, they're connected. They're sharing energy, information, processing power. They're acting like one massive organism, a hive mind, Kanho asked. More than that. They're a collective consciousness that spans multiple dimensions. Each ship is like a cell in a vast brain. Captain Yunji added her own disturbing observations. The ships are also teaching each other. When one ship learns something new, all the others instantly know it too. They're evolving as a group. When Admiral Sujin's fleet arrived, the tactical situation became clear immediately. The humans were outnumbered 5-1. The Imperial ships had massive firepower advantage. Under normal circumstances, it would be a slaughter. Admiral Sujin, Kangho said over the fleet communications, I must advise caution. These humans are not what they appear to be. I've read your reports, Admiral, Sujin replied coldly. Impressive technology, but they're still just one species with limited numbers. We have over 300 ships. Their technology breaks. The laws of physics, then we'll break them first. Admiral Sujin deployed her fleet in a classic engagement formation. Dreadnoughts in the center, battle cruisers on the flanks, support vessels providing covering fire. It was a formation that had won 1,000 battles across the galaxy. All ships, she announced, prepare for combat. Target the largest human. Vessels first, use maximum firepower. I want them destroyed quickly, the Imperial weapons charged to full power. Plasma cannons that could melt asteroids. Quantum torpedoes that could tear holes in space itself. Gravitational disruptors that could crush ships into singularities. Captain Minho received word of the Imperial battle preparations. He looked around his bridge at his transformed crew and felt sadness more than anger. They're going to try to destroy us, he announced. Should we defend ourselves? Asked Tactical Officer Sangmin, whose body flickered between solid matter and pure energy. We'll show them what defense means when you control the fundamental forces of reality, Minho replied. Try not to hurt them. They don't understand what they're dealing with. The Imperial fleet opened fire first. Hundreds of energy beams and projectiles streaked across space toward the human ships. It was enough firepower to destroy a moon. Every shot passed harmlessly through the human vessels. What happened? Admiral Sujin demanded. The humans phased out of our dimension, her tactical officer reported. Our weapons can't hit targets that don't exist in normal space. And then bring them back into our dimension. How, ma'am? Admiral Sujin had no answer. Her weapons were designed to fight enemies that existed in the same reality she did. She had never faced an enemy that could simply step outside of existence whenever they chose. The human response was swift and shocking. Instead of returning fire, they began to demonstrate their true capabilities. Captain Minho's ship, the Defiance, suddenly appeared inside the Imperial formation. Not near it, not beside it, but occupying the same space as 3 Imperial cruisers without touching them. This is impossible, Admiral Sujin breathed. Her science officer's voice shook as he reported. Ma'am, they're existing in the same location as our ships, but in a slightly different dimensional phase. They're not displacing our ships, they're sharing space with them? Other human ships began similar demonstrations. They moved through Imperial vessels like ghosts. They appeared in multiple locations simultaneously. They grew larger and smaller without changing their mass. They're not just using advanced technology, Kanho realized over the fleet communications. They are the technology. They've merged with their ships so completely that they can reshape reality around themselves. Captain Minho's voice echoed across all Imperial communication channels. We don't want to fight you. We want to go home, but if you insist on trying to destroy us, we'll show you what destruction really means. To demonstrate his point, one of the smaller human ships approached an Imperial destroyer. Without firing a weapon or making contact, the human ship convinced the destroyer's atoms to rearrange themselves. The massive warship folded like paper, transforming into a perfect geometric sculpture that somehow still functioned as a spaceship. The crew was unharmed, but their ship had been turned into abstract art. Admiral, the destroyer's captain called. Over the communications, his voice filled with wonder and terror. My ship has been turned into something beautiful. All systems are still functioning, but we're now shaped like a flower made of metal and light. Admiral Sujin stared at her tactical display. The humans weren't fighting her fleet. They were playing with it. They were demonstrating power so far beyond anything she understood that resistance seemed pointless. All ships, she announced. Quietly, cease fire. Fall back to minimum safe distance. Ma'am? Her tactical officer asked. We're not fighting an enemy, she said. We're witnessing gods. Captain Minho decided it was time for a proper meeting. The Imperial fleet had stopped shooting, which was progress, but he could sense their fear and confusion. Fear led to bad decisions, and he wanted to prevent unnecessary violence. Admiral Sujin, his voice carried across all Imperial communication channels, I would like to speak with you face to face. May I come aboard your flagship? Admiral Sujin looked around her bridge nervously. Her crew stared back at her with wide eyes. Having a being of impossible power aboard their ship seemed dangerous. "How do we know you won't harm us?" she asked. "If I wanted to harm you, Admiral, your ships would already be gone. I'm asking permission out of politeness, not necessity." Sujin realized he was right. If the humans could reshape matter with their thoughts, they could destroy her entire fleet without effort. The fact that they were asking permission suggested it might actually be peaceful. "Very well," she said finally. "You may come aboard. But I want my security teams ready." "Your security teams won't be able to see me arrive," Minho replied gently. "I don't travel through normal space anymore." Before Admiral Sujin could ask what that meant, Captain Minho was standing on her bridge. He hadn't appeared in a flash of light or transported in any visible way. One moment he wasn't there, the next moment he was, as if he had always been standing in that spot. The security guards reached for their weapons, but Minho raised his hand and their guns simply stopped working. Not broken or damaged, just no longer capable of firing. "Please don't be afraid," he said kindly. "I really am here to talk." Admiral Sujin studied the human captain carefully. He looked mostly normal, but there was something different about him. His edges seemed slightly blurred, as if he wasn't quite solid. His eyes held depths that suggested he was seeing far more than what was physically present. "What are you?" she asked directly. "I'm what humans chose to become," Minho replied. "We decided that biology was just the starting point, not the ending point. We chose to evolve beyond the limitations of flesh and blood." "Into what?" "Into beings of pure consciousness that can manipulate matter and energy through will alone. We exist across multiple dimensions simultaneously. We can reshape reality according to our thoughts." Dr. Haisu, the Empire's chief xenobiologist, stepped forward from the science station. She had been listening to every word, trying to understand what she was hearing. "How is that possible?" she asked. "Consciousness can't exist without a physical brain." Minho smiled at her. "That's what we used to think too. But consciousness isn't produced by the brain. The brain is just a tool that consciousness uses to interact with physical reality. Once we learn to exist without physical limitations, we could build better tools." "The ships," Admiral Kong Ho said over the communications from his own vessel. "The ships are your new bodies." "Partially," Minho confirmed. "But we're not limited to the ships. We can exist in any form we choose. We can be energy, matter, or something in between. We can be large or small, simple or complex." To demonstrate, Minho's form shifted. He became taller, then shorter. His skin took on different colors. For a moment, he appeared to be made of living starlight. "This is impossible," Dr. Haisu whispered. "Only according to the physics you know," Minho replied, returning to his normal appearance. "But physics is much larger than your current understanding. Reality has more dimensions than you've discovered. Consciousness has more capabilities than you've explored." Admiral Sujin felt overwhelmed by the implications. "If you have this power, why are you telling us about it? Why not just leave us alone?" "Because we want you to understand something important," Minho said seriously. "Your empire has been limiting itself. You've become so focused on control and stability that you've stopped growing. You've stopped evolving." "Evolution is dangerous," Sujin protested. "Change leads to chaos." "Stagnation leads to death," Minho replied. "Look at your empire, Admiral. How long has it been since you made a real discovery? How long since you encountered something that challenged your understanding of the universe?" The question hit home. The empire had been the same for centuries. Same technology, same social structure, same way of thinking. They had achieved stability by eliminating change. "But look what you've become," Dr. Haisu said with a mixture of awe and horror. "You're not human anymore." "We're more human than we ever were," Minho corrected. "We've kept everything that made us human, our curiosity, our compassion, our desire to grow and learn. We've just removed the limitations that held us back." He gestured toward the main screen, which showed the other human ships moving in their impossible formations. Every one of those ships contains thousands of human consciousnesses working together. We share thoughts, emotions, experiences. We've become a collective intelligence while remaining individuals. We've achieved true unity without losing our personal identity. Commander Taemin spoke up from his position at the intelligence station. What do you want from us? We want to offer you a choice, Minho said. The same choice we offered ourselves 50 years ago. You can remain as you are, bound by the limitations of biology and primitive technology. Or you can choose to evolve. Into what you are? Into what you choose to become. Evolution isn't a destination, it's a process. We're still changing, still growing, still discovering new possibilities. Admiral Sujin felt a chill run down her spine. And if we refuse? Then you refuse, Minho said simply. We won't force evolution on anyone. That would defeat the purpose. Growth has to be chosen freely or it's not real growth. But you're going to Earth anyway. Yes, we're going home to share what we've learned with the rest of humanity. Not everyone will choose transcendence. Many will remain biological. Both choices are valid. Dr. Ji-woo's voice came over the communications from the Eternal Dominion. Captain Minho, what you're describing would fundamentally change every species in the galaxy. It would change everything, Minho agreed. But change is the only constant in the universe. The question is whether you guide your own change or let it happen randomly. The Empire would never accept such massive changes, Admiral Sujin. Sighed, then the Empire will fall, Minho replied sadly. Not because we'll destroy it, but because stagnant systems eventually collapse under their own weight. Evolution always wins in the end. He looked around the bridge at the Imperial officers. But individuals can choose differently than their governments. Any of you who want to learn more about transcendence are welcome to come with us. The offer hung in the air like a challenge. Several crew members looked interested but scared. The possibility of becoming something more than human was both terrifying and exciting. We need time to think, Admiral Sujin said finally. Of course, Minho replied, but don't take too long. We'll be at Earth soon, and after that we'll be moving on to explore other dimensions, other realities, other possibilities. Moving on? The universe is vast, Admiral. This dimension is just one of countless others. Once you learn to exist across multiple realities, you discover that exploration never ends. Minho's form began to fade. I'll return to my ship now. But remember, the choice to evolve is always available. You just have to be brave enough to take the first step. He disappeared, leaving the Imperial officers staring at empty space where he had been standing. Admiral Sujin looked around her. Rigid her crew. Some looked terrified, others looked thoughtful, and a few looked hungry for the possibilities Minho had described. Ma'am, Dr. Haisu said quietly, what if he's right? What if we've been limiting ourselves? Sujin didn't have an answer. For the first time in her career, she wasn't sure what the right choice was on the main screen. The human ships continued their journey toward Earth, leaving the Imperial fleet to contemplate a future that might be completely different from anything they had imagined. Emperor Yujun sat in his throne room, reading Admiral Sujin's report for the third time. The words made no sense. His most powerful fleet had been neutralized by beings who could reshape reality with their thoughts. Beings who had once been primitive humans. This is madness, he said to General Sung-ho. They're claiming humans have become gods. The evidence is hard to ignore, Your Majesty, the general replied carefully. Multiple admirals have confirmed the same impossible capabilities. Then we destroy them before they can spread their influence. How? Your Majesty? They exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously. Our weapons cannot touch them. Yujun stood and walked to the massive window that looked out over his capital city. Millions of beings lived there in perfect order, following the same patterns their ancestors had followed for centuries. The stability of the empire was built on predictability and control. Bring me the precursor weapons, he ordered. General Singho's face went pale. Your Majesty, those weapons haven't been used in over 1,000 years. We don't fully understand how they work. but they work with technologies beyond our current capabilities, perhaps beyond even human capabilities. Your Majesty, the Precursor? Weapons could destroy entire star systems. Using them against Earth would mean killing billions of innocent humans who haven't transcended. Acceptable losses, Yujun said coldly. The stability of the Empire is more important than any single species. Meanwhile, the human fleet had reached Earth's solar system. Captain Minho stood on the bridge of the Defiance, watching his homeworld grow larger on the main screen. It had been 50 years since he left, but it looked exactly as he remembered. "Welcome home, Captain," said Navigator Unesio. "It's good to be back," Minho replied. "Kiwu, are our siblings ready for the next phase?" Engineer Kiwu's consciousness sparkled through the ship's systems. "The Harmony, Evolution, and Transcendence fleets are all in position. The human population on Earth has been prepared for our return, and those who chose full transcendence? Ready and eager. They've been waiting for us to return so they can join the collective consciousness." Earth itself looked different to Minho's enhanced perception. He could see the dimensional barriers that surrounded the planet, carefully maintained by the humans who had stayed behind. He could sense the billions of minds below, some still fully biological, others partially transcended, all of them part of the vast human family. Back with the Imperial fleet, Engineer Dongwu made a disturbing discovery. "Admiral Kangho, I'm detecting massive energy buildups throughout the Empire. They're activating the precursor weapons." Admiral Kangho felt his heart sink. The precursor weapons were ancient artifacts left behind by a species that had vanished long before the Empire existed. They were incredibly powerful, but also incredibly dangerous. "How many systems?" he asked. "All of them, sir. Every major Imperial world is charging precursor weapons simultaneously." Dr. Jiwoo's voice came over the communications from his science station. "Admiral, if they fire all those weapons at once, the dimensional disruption could tear holes in reality itself." Admiral Sujin's fleet was close enough to Earth to see what was happening. The human ships were gathering around their homeworld, but they weren't preparing for battle. They were preparing for something else entirely. "What are they doing?" she asked her science officer. "Ma'am, they're creating some kind of dimensional gateway. It's enormous, big enough for entire fleets to pass through." Captain Minho's voice reached her ship one last time. "Admiral Sujin, we want you to know that we're not abandoning this dimension out of fear. We're leaving because it's time for US to explore new realities." "What about the humans who stay behind?" Sujin asked. "They'll be protected. Earth will remain, but it will exist partially outside normal spacetime. Your empire won't be able to reach it with conventional weapons. And the precursor weapons?" There was a pause before Minho answered. "Those might actually work, but using them would damage more than just us. They would tear holes in the fabric of reality itself." Admiral Sujin realized the terrible choice her emperor was making. In his fear of human transcendence, he was willing to risk destroying the universe itself. On Earth, billions of humans were making their own choices. Some chose to remain biological, trusting that the transcended humans would protect them. Others chose partial evolution, gaining some enhanced abilities while keeping their physical forms, but millions chose complete transcendence. They merged their consciousness with the collective intelligence that spanned multiple universes. They became part of something vast and wonderful, beings of pure thought and will who could exist anywhere and everywhere at once. Dr. Haisu, watching from Admiral Sujin's flagship, saw the transformation happen in real time. "Ma'am, I'm detecting massive consciousness transfers. Millions of human minds are merging with the transcended fleet." "Are they dying?" Sujin asked. "No, ma'am. They're becoming something more than alive." The dimensional gateway around Earth began to stabilize. Through it, Admiral Sujin could see glimpses of other realities, universes with different physical laws, dimensions where consciousness and matter followed completely different rules. "We're ready to depart," Captain Minho announced. "But before we go, we want to leave you with something." "What?" Admiral Sujin asked. "Knowledge. The basic principles of consciousness transcendence. Any individual who wants to follow this path can do so. It will take time and study, but the choice will always be available. A data packet arrived at every Imperial ship simultaneously. It contained scientific information, philosophical concepts, and practical instructions for beginning the process of consciousness evolution. Why are you giving this to us? Admiral Kang Ho asked over the fleet communications. Because evolution is meant to be shared, Min Ho replied. Because growth is better when everyone has the opportunity to participate. At that moment, the Emperor's orders reached every precursor weapon station throughout the Empire. The ancient weapons began their final charging sequence. In minutes, they would fire simultaneously, creating a wave of dimensional destruction aimed at Earth. You need to leave now, Admiral Sujin warned the humans. We know, Min Ho replied sadly. We can sense the weapons charging. But we're not leaving because of the threat. We're leaving because it's time for us to continue our journey. The human fleet began moving through the dimensional gateway. Ships that had seemed impossible became even more impossible as they transitioned between realities. They stretched and compressed, existing in multiple universes simultaneously. Will we ever see you again? Dr. Haisu asked. Perhaps. Min Ho's voice grew distant as his ship moved further into the gateway. If your species chooses to evolve, if you learn to exist across multiple dimensions, you might find us exploring the infinite possibilities of existence. The last human ship passed through the gateway just as the precursor weapons fired. The ancient energy beams struck Earth's solar system with enough power to crack planets. But they found nothing there except empty space and the lingering traces of a dimensional doorway that had already closed. Earth itself was gone. Not destroyed, but moved to a reality where the Empire's weapons couldn't reach it. The humans who had chosen to remain biological were safe in their new dimensional home. Protected by their transcended siblings, Admiral Sujin stared at the empty space where Earth had been. In her hands, she held the data packet containing humanity's gift, the knowledge of how to evolve beyond biological limitations. Ma'am, Dr. Haisu said quietly, what do we do now? Sujin looked around her bridge at her crew. Some looked relieved that the threat was over. Others looked disappointed that they had missed their chance for transcendence. A few, including Dr. Haisu, looked hungry to study the human knowledge. Now we have a choice, Sujin said finally. We can report back to the Emperor that the threat has been eliminated. We can return to our normal duties and pretend nothing has changed. Or, Haisu asked, or we can study what the humans left us. We can explore the possibility of becoming something more than we are. Engineer Dongwu spoke up from Admiral Kang Ho's ship. Admiral, I've been looking at their data. The first steps don't require any special equipment. Just a willingness to expand consciousness beyond normal limitations. It's dangerous, Commander Taemin warned. The Empire won't tolerate this kind of research. Then maybe it's time to stop serving an empire that fears growth. Admiral Sujin replied. Over the following months, individuals throughout the Imperial fleet began secretly studying human transcendence techniques. Some made no progress, lacking the necessary mindset for consciousness evolution. Others achieved small breakthroughs, developing enhanced mental abilities and deeper awareness of reality's hidden dimensions. A few, including Dr. Haisu and engineer Dongwu, made dramatic progress. They learned to exist partially outside normal space-time, to manipulate matter through focused thought, to perceive realities beyond the physical universe. The Empire tried to stop them, but consciousness evolution was impossible to prevent once it began. The knowledge spread through hidden networks of curious individuals who refused to accept biological limitations as permanent. Some chose to remain within the Empire, working quietly to guide it toward greater understanding. Others left to explore the Gala.